She called me to remind me, she called me I think maybe a week ago or so. I knew about it. You know what I'm saying? Because I live a life today where I know where I'm supposed to be next week. And I know if I have an appointment on Thursday at 5 o'clock. Because that's the kind of life I choose to live today. And that wasn't how I was when I got here. And now I'm going to tell you my story. What time do I stop? Where's the stopper, man? Okay. So I'm coming up on 38 years old. I'm going to be 38 soon, pushing 40. And I've been sober for 22 years. I just turned 22 years sober. So I got sober when I was 15 and a half. I don't want to stress your brains out and make you do any math while we're in here. And so I've lived a lot of life sober. And it doesn't mean that I am any better than anybody else who has one day. It just means that I have more days to look back on when I have a problem. My Wikipedia search engine is more full. And my story goes like this. Here we go. So I was raised in Malibu. I come from an affluent Jewish family. I have 3 brothers. I'm the only girl. I'm the second of 4. My parents got divorced when I was 7. I was raised a Reformed Jew, which means that we take all the perks and don't go to temple. And we do sometimes, just not as much as other people. And when I was 7, my parents got separated. And when I was 12, I found out that the reason my parents got separated is because my dad was gay. And that was when I was, so that was in 1984, and the only gay person I knew was Boy George. So my perception of my father became, well, Boy George. And so I had a drink. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I started using long before I knew he was gay. But subconsciously, no, I'm just kidding. I started using at a very young age. I believe because my pain started at a very young age. I was abused from, I think, the time I was 5. I actually don't really remember, but I know I was very, very young. And that's not what makes me an alcoholic, but I think it's what made me use faster than some other people because the pain was just too great. I don't like to feel. It makes me uncomfortable when I feel. And so when I medicate, I don't feel. And I didn't know that's what I was doing, but I did. And my first drug of choice, which I don't recommend, was chocolate X-Lax, and it doesn't work. It won't get you high, but it'll give you serious diarrhea. And I would eat that shit. I mean, and I would just go back and I'd be like, I don't know, Grandma, I just can't go, you know, and I would just, and I don't know why, and finally when I was sick, I remember my grandpa coming into the room and going, why didn't you just ask for some candy? You know what I mean? It was like, ding, you know what I'm saying, like the light, it was so, but I always behaved that way, ever since I was very, very tiny, and I tell that story because it wasn't about the drug I was taking, it was the way I took the drug that made the difference. So that's what happened. So I started using very, very young, which means that I got in trouble very, very young. And by the time I was 14, I had been arrested 3 times. And on my 3rd arrest, nobody came to pick me up from jail. The first time my dad picked me up, and the second time my mom picked me up, and the 3rd time no one picked me up. And I was kicked out of the whole Los Angeles Unified School District, which is not easy to do. Very proud of that fact. And I really was, you know, I was 15 years old and I had nowhere to go and nobody was coming to get me. And so what they do with us is they send us to juvenile hall. And that's not good for a little Jewish girl from Malibu because we don't fare well in institutions like that. So, and I knew it. So the judge told my mother that it was either foster care or rehab. He told her that she was an unfit parent and that either I was sent to some sort of a rehabilitation, whatever. They didn't call it rehab at that time. I don't remember the word he used, but I knew what foster care was, and I knew I didn't want to go there. So I opted for PDAP, which was the Palmer Drug Abuse Program, which is where I got sober in 1987. And when I went there, I had no idea what I was in for. Woo, I had no idea. And And I didn't know, all I knew is that I was always getting arrested. That's what I knew. I knew that you guys were getting loaded and not going to jail, and I was getting loaded and going to jail, and fuck you and why me, you know what I mean? And I was in a lot of pain. I knew I was in a lot of pain, and I knew that I couldn't imagine that everybody had the voices in their head that I had in mine. I never was at rest, ever. I mean, if I was unconscious, I was at rest, but sleeping was not unconscious because I could still feel the voices. I could still feel the pain of the dreams or the nightmares or whatever. Can I move this? Where's the guy? Can I move this? Okay. And I knew there had to be a better way. So I went to this Palmer drug abuse program, and I listened to what they had to say, and I'm sure that very little of it seeped in. And when you come from where I come from, what they do with you is they send you overseas for a summer, whatever. That's what you did. So I opted for Spain because hash is legal, and so I was off to Spain. And you plan these trips in advance, and I wasn't planning on being sober when I went to Spain. So I got sober in December, and then that June I was going to Spain, and I got off the plane, I went to Madrid, and within 4 days I was in my little town, and I was sleeping with the bartender, and off I was going. And I'm 15, and I'm sleeping with the bartender of this bar in Oviedo, Spain, and off and running I am for the next 3 months in Spain. And it really scared me because I got in a lot of very dangerous situations. I mean, I understood the language, but not when I was loaded. And and it was very, very scary. And when we got back into Madrid afterwards and I got on the plane, that's the last time I ever used. And I remember sitting on that plane and thinking, wow, I'm really lucky to be alive right now because I could have gotten myself killed numerous times. And it was as if I was able to really see myself because it was such a foreign scene that I was really able to see how dangerous I am to me. As dangerous as the most dangerous predator is to its prey, I am to myself when I allow myself to be victimized by my disease. And I came back to the States, and of course, being like all of us, I lied. And I didn't tell anybody that I had gotten loaded when I was in Spain until I had a year of the loaded date, you know what I mean? Because, I wanted that time. And then I came clean up the podium. I took my cake 3 months late and then came clean up at the podium or whatever it was. And my journey began. And I want to get through the whole thing because most of it happens when I'm sober. So that's like what my loaded life was like. I was a 12-year-old girl hitchhiking from Westwood to Point Dume to get my drugs, to get back to stand in front of the theater where my mommy had dropped me off to go to the movies, asking people what the movie was about. So when I got in the car with my drugs, I could tell her what the movie was about that I had never seen. And that's sort of how I lived, my life as a child. And, there was no Pollyanna running around my house. So when I got sober, I did exactly what you told me to do. I swear to God. When I got here, I did exactly what you told me to do. You told me to go to meetings, I went to meetings. You told me to go to sober dances, I went to sober dances. I'd never been in the Valley in my life, and I was driving to sober dances when I turned 16. I wound up in snow. I got so fucking lost, but I went. I showed up. I did everything you guys told me to do. I mean, you know what I mean? The first convention I ever went to was in Bakersfield, for God's sake. And I was like, we're in Bakersfield! You know what I mean? Like, oh, this is Bakersfield? But, I mean, I really tried. It was very funny. It was really funny. But I really, really tried to embrace and find out how I could be crazy and funny and obnoxious and all the things that I liked about being loaded and be sober at the same time. So I really embraced the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous, but none of it was possible if I didn't have a sponsor and wasn't dealing with the demons, because if I didn't do that, then I was just left with all the emotions. And then I was sitting in the corner with my brain having 52 conversations, and I was unable to enjoy anything. So it's imperative that you start from the very beginning and you build an incredible foundation, because one day you're going to want to build a house. And when the storm hits and that house falls down, you're going to be left with that foundation. And that's what happened to me. So time passed, and I got some time sober, and I did a lot of things that were fantastic, and I did a lot of things that weren't. I slept with a lot of wrong people. I slept with people in rooms where I ended up having to sit way back over there because I had slept with that whole side of the room. And, I mean, it wasn't like, it was like a perfect AA story, you know what I mean? I mean, we're sick people, we do sick shit, we fix on whatever we can, and no one told me I couldn't have sex, so boom! And, But I stayed sober. You know what I mean? I stayed sober. And when I was in enough pain, I apologized for my behaviors. And when I was hurting enough, I went to somebody and asked them, how did they get rid of their pain? And I listened. And I didn't use. And when I was 5 years sober, I met him. And he was the secretary of Hill Street. And I know he thought I was like 12, but I wasn't. And I was taking a 5-year cake. And when I went up to him and, they're like, who's taking a birthday? Who's having a birthday? And I was like, I'm 5. I'm taking a 5-year cake. Aren't I cute? And I wanted to be with him, and I decided that he was going to be my husband. And so I proceeded to focus on that. And, and you know how we are. We're just like, that is what I am focused on, and only that. And anyway, so, and this is how God works in my life. So I married him, and we had an AA sober wedding, and we were boy meets girl on AA campus, and we were the AA couple, and life was grand, and people couldn't believe that he was marrying me. And we were both 5, and he got sober in June, and he got sober in July, and I got sober in August, and it was just, we were both the same age, and oh, it's just perfect. And sobriety age, he was 9 years older than me, natal birthday, but... And we co-sponsored people at Clare Youth when they had the Clare Youth thing across the street, and we were on committees of conventions, and we were living the AA dream, and we bought a house, and, we decided to get pregnant on purpose. Oh my God, on purpose, you know what I mean? Sober people do that. And who would have thunk? And we had 2 beautiful daughters, and I thought my life was like, I was living the AA dream, you know what I mean? I had done the work, I had built the foundation, I had a solid foundation of this program, I had done my amends, I had humbled myself and apologized when I didn't want to, I had sat in the feelings when my sponsor told me that's what I needed to do when I really just wanted to run away. I had shed many tears over my past and my failures and my fears, and I had learned how to become a human being that I could live with. Forget you guys, a human being that I could live with at the end of the day. And my life was amazing. And it wasn't just because I had a house and the kids and the minivan and that kind of shit. It was because at the end of the day, when I laid my head down to rest, I felt really good about who I was and what I was doing. And people who were in my life felt really good about who I was and what I was doing. And I had become a responsible, accountable woman in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. And my life progressed, and when I was 10 years sober, my fabulous, perfect husband got loaded. And my life went to shit. And I was pissed. And I was pissed at Alcoholics Anonymous, and I was even more pissed at you fucks who were smiling in the rooms. I was pissed. You know what I mean? It was not fucking funny anymore. And I did everything you said I was going to do, and my life fell apart. And I didn't even get loaded, God damn it. You know what I mean? I was still sober and my life fell apart. I lost everything, and I was still fucking sober. And I was not a happy camper. And I had heard about, I had a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old at the time. And I had heard stories about people coming up to the podium and saying, I was in the hospital, I was having a liver transplant, and AAers came, and they were by my bedside day and night, and they brought me food. And I would wake up from my whatever, I was on, and there would be an AAer with the big book chanting at me. And they just kept coming and kept coming. And the love from AA saved me. You know what I mean? And there was nobody chanting at my bedside, okay? There was no AAers bringing me food or helping buy me groceries or coming to watch my kids so I could go to a meeting. That is just not my experience. My sponsees were like, see ya. His sponsees were like, see ya. His sponsor was like, see ya. People were freaked out. They were like, oh my God, if a guy like this can get loaded, I am the plague. And people just backed away. People were afraid, and I was left alone. I was left alone with these 2 children and me and God. And that's what it broke down to. At 10 plus years of sobriety, it was back to the basics, me and God. And I had a choice. I had a choice to embrace what I had begun, even though it wasn't working out the way that I wanted it to, or I could say, fuck it. And I knew exactly where fuck it was going to lead me because I was looking at him. Right? So I chose, and it was a conscious decision, let me tell you. I mean, what's that mom that drove her kids into the river or whatever, or drowned them in the bathtub? I mean, if you think that I didn't have those thoughts, I did. I absolutely did, but guess what? Nobody can arrest me for my thoughts. We don't get loaded by our thoughts. You don't get sober by your thoughts either. You don't get healthy by your thoughts. Your thoughts are just your thoughts. They don't really do shit. But make you uncomfortable. It's your actions that do all of it. You know what I'm saying? I remember when I was in therapy when I was a kid, because I was always in therapy when I was a kid, and I remember my therapist, I was saying, but I want to kill my mom. And she goes, well, you are not responsible for your thoughts, and you can't get in trouble for your thoughts. Only if you kill your mom can you get in trouble. So you're allowed to think about killing your mom as much as you want. And I was like, cool. I'm just gonna fucking think about killing my mom. You know what I mean? I mean, it's comical now, but at the time it was kind of painful. But the point is that your actions aren't gonna do anything, positive or negative. They're just not gonna do, your thoughts, they're not gonna do anything. It's only your actions that are gonna do something. And I was really at a crossroads, and I was double-digit sobriety, and I was like, this is not what you guys promised me. This isn't what you said. You said that if I do this, the promises are gonna come true, and I'm gonna have a beautiful life. Where's my beautiful life? And what I realized is my beautiful life was right there, because I had all the tools. And guess what? The storm came and my house blew down, but I had a solid foundation to stand on. I wasn't standing in quicksand. I was standing on concrete, really thick concrete that I built, that nobody could touch or crack or destroy. And I started to rebuild my house. And it wasn't easy. And I cried many, many days. There was many mornings. This is the level of sadness. I had a bay window in my kitchen, and I used to get up in the morning before I had to get my kids up, and I would climb in the bay window and turn on Barry Manilow and cry. Okay? It was a sad state of affairs. You know what I'm saying? It was like, really? Like my life was a bad after-school special. You know what I mean? Lifetime had nothing on me. So, and it was day by day. It was day by day. And the beauty of it is that I get to stand here 12 years after this happened, and I get to say to you with utter empathy and sympathy, don't tell me you can't stay sober through whatever it is you're going through. Don't fucking tell me that. Because I'm telling you, you can. Because I did it. He left me with no money. He left me with 2 children, a shitload of bills. You know what I'm saying? He took everything that we had built and he destroyed it within a 2-year period of time. Everything. I ended up having to take him to court to prove that he was an unfit parent, to take away his parental rights, to get a restraining order against him because he threatened to kill the children. It was madness. I had, at the time, I think I had a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old who, I remember my daughter calling me up and going, Mommy, Daddy's dead. Now, you got to picture it from a 5-year-old where they're like, Mommy, Daddy's dead. And you're like, what? And she's like, well, I hit him, and he's laying down, and he's not moving. And I'm like, well, slap him on the back. And I hear this like, nothing, Mommy, what should I do? Do you know what I'm saying? And I'm thinking to myself, oh my fucking God, this guy's OD'd. And I had to, I said, pour water on him, and nothing happened. And I had to call the paramedics, and then the paramedics came. 3 times this happened. 3 times, because guess what? He was their legal father. And he was still my legal husband. We were separated, and I had no rights. He got visitation, and that's the way it was. And you guys taught me that if you want something to be sustainable, and if you want something that you can be proud of, then you have to do it the right way. And that means you don't take the kids and run off to fucking Oklahoma or whatever. You go through the court system, and you do it the right way. Well, guess what? That takes time. It takes time, and it takes money. You know what I'm saying? So it took me time, and it took me money to legally get him away from the children. On my daughter's 10th birthday, my ex-husband's attendance was, we rented a limousine and we went to Build-A-Bear for her birthday. 6 of her friends, and we went to Build-A-Bear in a limousine. That's what she wanted to do. So he gets in the limousine, and he is drunk, and he passes out and is snoring and drooling on the back of one of the 6-year-olds in the limousine. And I look at the 6-year-old, and she's leaning forward like this. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying? Like that was the kind of incomprehensible demoralization that I went through sober. And it was devastating. Okay, so time passes, and my children are getting older, and I now have a restraining order against the man that I promised to God that I was going to spend the rest of my life with. I've taken away all of his parental rights. He is now homeless, living somewhere in Malibu with a hippie girlfriend who's a raw foodist, who I'm convinced is only a raw foodist because they have no power, but she's a raw foodist, and I've built, you know, a life that is not nearly as glamorous as it was when I was married, but it is the life that I've built. My children are doing well. I'm still sober, and life is moving forward. Every day, life is moving forward. I'm healing. I'm learning how to risk loving again, not with one of you people, but risk loving again. And just kidding. Anyway, I mean, I'm crazy, but I'm not that fucking crazy. So, I'm kidding. And my life is slowly improving, okay? It's slowly improving. And it improved one day at a time. And it improved in milestones that sometimes I didn't see. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes the problem had to be 3 months behind me before I even recognized the fact that it was fucking over. Have you ever had that happen? You hold on to shit for so long, and you think that it encompasses your whole life, and then it's gone, and you didn't even recognize when it left? Like, what is that? Do you know? And that happened all the time, where I was so wrapped up in, like, the drama that I wasn't even able to see any of the accomplishments. But slowly, things got better. So we have to fast forward now to I'm almost 20 years sober. And my kids are getting older, and they're, you know, bras, tampons, and boys, and it's just just an overview of the daily activities. And oh God, if you could hear our dinner time table conversation. I was gonna bring my kids tonight, you know, because they usually come with me, and then they sit in the front seat, and then they wave to all you people. See, we're still here, we're alive, we're healthy, it all turned out good. But my daughter goes, she's like, you know, Mommy, the thing is, I kind of lived your story, so I kind of know it. I just kind of don't need to hear it again, because I'm kind of here every day, you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, I kind of have a good point. Okay, stay home. So they're doing homework or whatever. Yeah, right. So my kids are getting older, and it's Mother's Day, and I'm almost 20. So it's May, or Mother's Day's in May, and I'm almost 20 years sober, and I'm engaged to a new man, and it's 10 years past the time that I just described to you, and much has changed. You know, I'm almost 20 years sober. And we go to my father's house for Mother's Day, not because he's gay, but we went to my father's house for Mother's Day, and I know. Sometimes I tell that part, and I haven't told people that he's gay, and they don't laugh, and I forget that they don't know that he's gay, and then it's not funny. But okay, so we're at my father's house, and I'm with my new in-laws to be, and my fiance and my kids, and we're all there, and my brothers and her. And my kids go, well, we want to go to Nanny, my mom, house after the thing and go swimming, which is odd because they are teenagers and Nanny's lame, right? So I'm like, yeah, okay, see ya. So me and my in-laws and my fiance go to the farmer's market in Pacific Palisades to shop for fruit. And I'm like, wow, isn't it amazing the difference for 10, you know what I mean? It was just one of those moments where I was like, wow, look at the difference in my life this time 10 years ago that it is today, you know what I'm saying? And these people really like me, and they like my kids, and they have all this respect for me, and it's, oh my God, and we're shopping for fruit, farmer's market on Mother's Day, woo. And I'm looking for navel oranges, and I look up, and there he is, standing right in front of me. And I'm like, fucking not funny. Like, I don't fucking think you're funny. And he's like a shadow of himself, you know. He's like all skinny, and his hair, he had this beautiful, I mean, he was an Adonis, this man. I mean, not only was he such a stud, the way he lived his life, he was such an amazing member of this program, but he was so beautiful on the outside, and he had this gorgeous blonde curly hair, and he was a surfer, and he was just to die for, and he just looked like a shell, and he was like, his teeth were all rotted, and his eyes were all sunken in, and his hair was all stringy, and his hands looked like he was 85, and I look up, and there he is, and I'm just like, oh my God. And, you know, I don't know if you're like me, but I had planned on what I was going to say to him for like, 10 years. And I knew exactly what I was going to say. And every time I thought I had it perfect, I found something else that was going to just rip his heart out. You know, I had the perfect resentment AA saying that I was just going to just lash out with venom and fire and, just pierce him to the point where he just turned to ashes. And, but I wasn't like holding on to a resentment or anything. And there he is, on Mother's Day of all days. And I looked up at him, and what ended up coming out of my mouth was the most loving. I wish I had videotaped it. It was the most loving. That would be on my tombstone. It was the most loving and caring and kind and gentle conversation you could have ever asked. And he asked me what was going on, and I ended up telling him all about the girls and what they were doing, and how this one had been to Italy with her school, and this one was doing this sport, and this one was really into this, and this one's favorite color changes every day, so it's like the walls on the bedroom have 15 coats of paint, and I just was like, blah, 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 and I was just sharing stuff that he had earned no right to know. Do you know what I'm saying? But I did it anyway, because that's what you do. Is, you treat people with much more kindness than they deserve, because that's who you are. You know what I mean? If you get well in this program, that's who you get to be. And I ended up sharing all this stuff, and his girlfriend was flailing around in the background. Ugh, she's like Janis Joplin, but worse. And she was just like, "You're such a cunt! You took the kids, and you don't let them see them, oh my God!" And she was just like doing some fucking dance or something, I don't know, And my in-laws are standing there like, "Oh my God, what's going on?" And, and I just tried to stay really calm. And I said, I said to my ex-husband, I said, I would really appreciate it if you could ask her to leave this conversation, because the thing is they're just not her kids. And so she just doesn't need to be here. And I said it that calmly. And he just sort of moved her off to the side, and she flailed about on the sidewalk. And then we continued our conversation. And he said to me, would it be okay if I called you without the courts, to contact the kids? And I'm like, "Look, you know where we are, you know my phone number, call me." And I didn't think he would call, and the next day he called, and I said, "You know what, man?" I said, "This has sent me for a total tailspin." I said, "I've just gotten the kids back in a place where they are comfortable and confident. We've been through a lot of therapy together. There's a lot of wreckage that was caused, and I just don't know if it's a good thing to open that up again." I said, "But let me pray about it. Let me talk to my sponsor about it, and I'll get back to you in a week." And this is where my definition of spirituality comes. Oh, fuck, I gotta hurry. When you got a lot of time sober, people love to get up here and go, "And on page it says," and that's cool. Look, I'm not dogging it. I don't have a good memory, so you're not gonna hear me do that. But I can't even remember what I had for breakfast. But here's the thing, and that's awesome, and I think it's great that people know that shit. That's not kind of how I do things. My definition of spirituality is this, and this is very important. If there's nothing else you get from what I say tonight, listen to what I'm saying to you right now. My definition of spirituality is this: do what you say you're gonna do when you say you're gonna do it. That's it. Be where you say you're gonna be when you say you're gonna be there, ready to do what it is you said you were going to do when you get there. It's that simple. And that's it. And if you live that way every hour of every day, you will find that you become an amazing human being who people adore and really, really want to be around. Because somebody who people can count on and depend on, that's really what it's all about. Because we were the most inconsistent, undependable assholes on the planet. And if you've forgotten what an asshole you are when you're loaded, let me remind you, you're an asshole when you're loaded. So I said, "I need a week. I need 7 days, and I will call you back. How do I reach you?" He gave me a number, and I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I took 7 days, not 6, not 8, not 7.5. I took 7 days, and I called him back exactly when I said I would call him back. And I told him what I needed, and I tried to behave like the judge behaved. I tried to behave completely neutral and do what's best for who? The children, because that's really what this is about. And I told him I needed 90 meetings in 90 days. I needed to talk to a sponsor. I needed to know that he had commitments at a meeting, and I needed to meet him at 3 meetings a week. And if after the 90 days, and he followed through with all these commitments, and I felt that he was a sober, safe human being, that I would allow him to see the children. And he said, "Thank you very much for your understanding, yada, yada. I need time. Let me get my shit together. I'll call you back in a week." Well, what do you think happened? Nothing happened, that's right. And nothing happened, and time moved on, and thus time moved on. So let's fast forward to the part that you haven't heard yet. Those of you who heard me last year or whatever it was. Okay, Thanksgiving, this past Thanksgiving, which was almost a year ago. We're at my dad's house. Coincidence. And Turkey Day, is there a connotation we can use there for something gay? Probably not. Okay. You know. If it was another animal, maybe, but not a turkey. Okay, so we're at my dad's house for Thanksgiving, and the way that I've run this house is we treat this disease like cancer. I don't hide pictures of my ex-husband and my children. I don't hide my wedding albums. The wedding albums are in a specific place. All the photos are in a specific place. The children are welcome to go and look at them whenever they damn well please, because there's nothing wrong with this man. He just has a disease. And if he had a brain tumor and was in a coma in a hospital, we wouldn't hide all his pictures. And so we're not going to do it now. So at my father's house, the wedding album that my father got is also in with all the other albums, and the children are free to look at it as they choose. And they decided to pull it out, and at the end of the evening, they said to me, you know, we'd really like you to get in touch with, they call him by his name. We don't call him Dad, because he hasn't earned it. We call him by his name. We'll call him Bob. So his name's not Bob, but we'll call him Bob. And they said, we'd really like you to get in touch with Bob. We want to know that he's alive. Do you have any way to get in touch with him? And I said, yes, I do, and I will contact him if that's what you would like. And I contacted him, and I said, look, here's the deal. The children are now almost grown. My kids are almost 16 and 14 now. This was a year ago. And I said, you know, you've missed out on their whole life. I said, they want to talk to you. They want to know you're alive. This is your last chance. I'm tired of reaching out to you. This is not the way it's supposed to be, but because the children asked me to, I'm going to. But I'm not going to do it again, whether they ask or not, and I need you to know that. You have a choice. You can meet me at the Sunday meeting, or you don't have to. If you meet me at the Sunday meeting and I feel that you're sober, we'll move from there. Yes or no. You don't have any time to decide. You need to decide right now. And he said, I want to meet you there, and he met me there, and he was sober. Now, whether he was healing or not, he was sober at that moment. And you could tell he was sober, you could tell he was broken, you could tell he was hollow, but he wasn't loaded at the time. And I called my daughter and I said, here's the situation. Bob is sober at this moment. We have gone through the meeting together. He is coherent. He is speaking in full sentences. He is not falling on the ground. Would you like to see him? She says, I don't know, let me ask my sister. She asked her sister, they talked about it, and they said, yes, we would. And so I brought him over to the house to see my children. And I said to him, now I want you to understand, I have a restraining order in place, and if at any time you do anything that's against my rules, I will call the police. I will not hesitate to call the police, and you will be thrown in jail. Do not test me. Because I have developed a very, very strong woman inside of me because of the trials and tribulations that I have been through. Do not test me. I will do anything to protect these children, period. And he was very humble, and he spent time with the kids. And with finances being what they are and the economy being what it is, you know, my work schedule has been for shit, and I work 6 days a week, sometimes more. Sometimes I have to pull doubles to make ends meet. My only day off is Sunday, and I invited this man who has done nothing but wronged me for the last 15 years of my life into my home every Sunday. And I fed him, and I bathed him, and I washed his clothes, and I cut his hair, and I allowed him to enjoy all of the external things that I worked my ass off to accomplish so that my children could watch what true kindness and love is, so that my children could see what a sober woman does no matter what. It's not just about not getting loaded. It's about living in a manner that you can be proud of. It's about doing things that you feel really, really good about, even if they haven't been deserved by the other person. It truly, truly is. It's about letting go of what you think you should have and start being grateful for the fucking things you do have. And I've been able to embrace this man, and he came consistently for a while, and then he did his old behavior, and he started flaking. And on my daughter's birthday last year, I think, she wanted me to call him, and I called him, and he was drunk. And she knew it, and I knew it, and that's just the way it is. And he will probably never make it back to these rooms. And he lives in some abandoned building in some mountain somewhere in Malibu, and he has no driver's license and drives a car, and he has multiple problems with the law. He's constantly going in and out of jail, and I don't think he's ever going to come back. And you have to understand that this was a man who had it all. So don't tell me that you can't stay sober because you don't have the stuff. You don't have the job or the fucking car or the girlfriend or a hot wife or any of the shit that you think that you need, because he had it all, and it didn't keep him sober. He had it all. He made tons of money. He had everything that you could ever think that you would want out of life, and it did not keep him sober. And he lost everything. He lost everything. And he will never recover. he probably will never recover, and we will love him anyway. And any time that he calls, I answer his phone calls. And if I'm unable to answer the phone, I always call him back. Do you know what I'm saying? I treat him with the respect that I would treat anyone who suffers from this horrible, horrible disease. You know, we have no control over the way we behave when we get loaded. We have no ability to predict the damage that we cause the people who love us when we do not follow the rules of this program and we get loaded. My older daughter is getting ready to drive. My younger daughter is graduating from junior high school, middle school, whatever they call it now. My kids are sober, healthy young women who tell me every single time a boy touches their tit, and you know, I have an amazing, amazing, amazing life. I have an unbelievable life. I get the shivers when I think about how blessed I am. You know, why was I blessed to stay here for 22 years and him not? I don't have any answers for you. I can tell you that I do not lie. I do not cheat. I speak absolutely honestly. I don't keep secrets. I follow direction of somebody who knows more than I do. I never say no to an AA request, ever. I remember last time I spoke here, I was like, I lost my voice, and so I would start talking, and I'd be saying something really super important, and I would be like, you know what I mean? Because my voice would totally go out. But I showed up anyway, and I was like, oh, sorry, I'll repeat that. That's how I live my life today. If you want what I have, do what I do. You can have every single thing I have and more. Thank you so much for listening to me share.